All right, and we are live with the Very Good Sports Podcast show. After the last one on Wednesday, we decided to keep the name. Joining me today are my good friends Chandler. Chandler, how you doing today?
Doing good. Doing good.
And of course, we have my other good friend, Seth. Seth, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
We got the technical issues all worked out, so now it will be a very good show talking about the Oakland Raiders, where we will set a Guinness World Record of 30-plus minutes talking exclusively about the Raiders. No one's done that before.
Do it.
All right, so looking at the Raiders offseason, I think the first thing where they're starting is just finding a defense coordinator. Names mentioned include Mike Smith, former Atlanta Falcons head coach, and Seahawks linebacker coach Ken Norton Jr. What direction do you think they'll end up going with this? Let's start with you, Chandler.
Well, okay. According to the kind of the recent rumors, is that we still have some nameless college defensive coordinators in the mix for the job, but we'll see how that goes. Earlier, we were looking at Louisville defensive coordinator Todd Grantham, and there was kind of mixed reactions. I mean, he did well for a while, and some people thought he was abysmal. Some people thought he did all right. I'd be excited because they likely bring back a 3-4 defense, and I'm a big proponent of that. But I do hope we end up with Ken Norton Jr. as defensive coordinator. Vic Defer earlier tweeted that we were interested in him, and I hope it's legitimate, and I hope it works out. Yeah, I think that's where we end up going, and that's what I hope for. So we'll see if we're rewarded for our patience.
Seth, what about you?
I'm in the same boat as Chandler on that one. I agree. I think Ken Norton Jr. makes the most sense for the Raiders, and I also think he's probably the best fit of those available. He's not the flashy names that we've been going after, although Mike Smith has been talked about. He could work for us, but with the rumors of him not wanting to get in at this season, Ken Norton is probably the best option and makes the most sense. And something that Chandler's talked about, and I know we'll talk about later, is the Raiders might not have the right pieces for a 4-3, 3-4 kind of up in the air. A Seattle-style defense, kind of integrates both of those, some elements from both those schemes. And so that might be something that we look into.
Now, on Mike's, I think I'd agree that Ken Norton Jr., given his background, what he did with the Seahawks, could be a great hire. But, I mean, Jack Del Rio, it seems like he's building a staff similar to what he had with the Jaguars. I mean, actually, I'm blanking on the name right now for the offense coordinator.
Musgrave.
Bill Musgrave, as he had his offense coordinator, and Mike Smith was defense coordinator. So I don't know. I was reading Yahoo another article where Mike Smith was a favorite, but I didn't hear about him may not be interested in head coaching or in coaching this year, which we see more head coaches who are fired take time off. So that could definitely be a thing that happens. All right. So now, Chandler, you mentioned that you talked about the 3-4 versus 4-3 and what direction they could go. You did a piece recently for Big Board Draft looking at their options. So why don't you talk about that and what you found?
I mean, I've been a proponent of moving to a 3-4 defense for a long time now, and constantly I was being hit with the reply of, we don't have the personnel for that. We don't have the personnel for that. How would we run it effectively? And if we're looking at our players going forward, the three young players we have on defense in our front seven that are worth committing to for the future are C.O. Moore, Khalil Mack, and Justin Ellis. He was a solid rookie young defensive tackle. And he'd be a great fit at zero technique in the base 3-4 defense. And those are the only three guys we really have to commit to going forward. I mean, the other guys, Justin Tuck, though he was decent at times last year, he's not going to be a part of the defense going forward, maybe for another year or so. But Lamar Woodley is probably, I could see him being cut this offseason. Nick Roach he was a middle linebacker. He got a concussion this last preseason, and then he didn't come back the entire season. So it's his long-term future is kind of in doubt. And so we really don't have pieces for anything right now. So which makes kind of right now the perfect time to kind of feel for what we want to do on defense and to add whatever personnel we want. So we kind of have flexibility right there. So yeah, I think we should go for a 3-4, but we'll see what we do.
And Seth, obviously you're the creator of Big Board Draft, which we've seen already is rising. So looking at personnel, I mean, obviously I think you build around young personnel of the defense. So what other areas do you think Oakland would need to add and address to help build this 3-4 defense?
Yeah, so when you look at the Raiders' defense, like Chandler said, our three main keystone pieces are all great fits in a 3-4. There are pieces that we would need to add, though. Starting at the defensive line, Justin Ellis fits great as a 0 technique, but we would need to add some 5 techniques. Short term, you could possibly look at someone like Justin Tuck to play at that position. He's somewhat close to the right size, although his skill set's not quite there. Shelby Harris possibly playing there. You know, I'm not sure about that. So 5 techniques immediately need to be added. I would expect CO and Khalil Mack to both play outside linebacker positions, but although I could see CO moving inside. Either way, a couple more linebackers would need to be added. And then, you know, looking at the back end, DJ Hayden, we still need to see what he can do. TJ Carey surprised last season, late round pick that came on strong. Can he continue developing? And then safety is a complete mess. Other than Charles Woodson, who won't be around forever. And then you look at after that, Tyvon Branch, his future with the team. There's a lot of doubt about that. And then after that, you know, Brandon Ross is the best guy left there. That's not saying much. So there are definitely some pieces that need to be added.
And now going back to preseason, Green Bay played Oakland preseason, and TJ Carey, I mean, it was just one game in the preseason, but he really stood out, and I like seeing that it carried over. You mentioned DJ Hayden. I mean, this is a guy who Raiders loved coming into the draft, and now, I mean, because, you know, he had the injury, and he's battled more injuries in Oakland. But as there's been playing time, he's shown some definite ability. So what do you guys think he can do in that area to improve and become a better corner? And we'll start with Seth.
You know, he came on stronger than we expected, and I don't know if you can really blame him, but there were times where he would get burned. Late round pick, he did surprise, and he played in some man coverage very well, but I still think he could improve there. It's not all on him. It's tough when you don't have much of an interior rush other than, you know, Khalil. So you know, just improving on, you know, the things that all rookies need to improve on, I think, is, you know, footwork and mechanics, and I think he's athletic enough to get it down, but he needs refinement, just as you'd expect from someone in his position.
Mm-hmm.
Follow up, Chandler?
Yeah, just kind of echoing what Seth said. Carey has a bright future going forward. Rookie corners typically struggle, and I think we maybe even saw that a little bit with DJ Hayden, because this last year being somewhat of his rookie year with him being injured most of his actual rookie year. We have a young secondary, and if DJ Hayden and Carey both continue to develop, then I think we have ourselves a solid number 2 corner, and then I think Carey would be a great fit in the slot. And I'm not sure what we do about number 1, but there are guys out there that we could take, and we'll see. But if both those guys develop, then we have a solid young secondary just to kind of build upon. We'll need safety help, of course, but I think it's solid building blocks.
And we mentioned some of the needs Raiders have, and I mean, they're going to have plenty of cap space to spend. I mean, they have $52 million right now. I saw you mention this, Chandler. They can create even more cap room by cutting guys like Matt Schaub, freeing up $5 million. So look, but you also have to consider their free agents. I mean, Steven Wisniewski is the big one. So what direction? Who do you think they bring back this year from their free agent class with that potentially $60 million? Chandler?
That's a good question. Though I wouldn't be a huge fan of it. I could see them bringing back Darren McFadden just for depth purposes. He was decent once he could finally stay healthy, but he's definitely lost a step or two. But he's not at all a bad guy to have at number 2 or number 3. If we can just add somebody that has a little bit more like a receiver skills, kind of like Shane Vereen maybe, that'd be a solid addition. I hope we don't keep Maurice Jones-Drew. I don't think he's worth what we what we're currently paying him, and I think he doesn't really have a future with the team. But we'll see if Del Rio can get rid of his old bell cow running back. We'll see. Yeah.
And Seth?
Yeah, I'm gonna just echo that. I could see McFadden coming back. You know, he's been a Raider. A lot of Raider Nation loves him, although he's been mediocre at best the last few years. But it's a team that needs depth, and if he can get back to his home run hitting ability, I wouldn't mind having him, especially if he signs a contract like he signed last. His most recent contract was very cap friendly for us. Other than that, Wiz I could see coming back at the right price, but as Reggie McKenzie showed last offseason with Jared Veltier, he's not going to overpay even for his own guys. So if Wiz gets a better offer elsewhere, he could walk. And MJD, he was kind of a waste of a roster spot in my opinion this last offseason. But Jack Del Rio's back, and the Raiders' official Twitter page tweeted out, MJD is reunited with Jack Del Rio, so I guess there's a chance he stays, but it wouldn't be a great move in my opinion.
MJD and Jack Del Rio can be reunited as long as MJD's cut, and he and Jack Del Rio can just be friends.
Fine with that.
Yep.
So look, this is a huge free agent class. You have guys like Julius and Demaryius Thomas, Randall Cobb, who I know there's been a lot of talk about potential connection there with Oakland, Terrence Knighton and Ndamukong Suh. There's a lot of money to be spending. Seth, starting with you, who do you think, or where do you think they go after first?
Well, it's Reggie McKenzie's really enigmatic. He doesn't like to overpay, and it's tough to see him going after a big name. Terrence Knighton makes some sense. He said that he wants to play where Jack Del Rio coaches, but with Justin Ellis, how different are they, and is Terrence Knighton worth the kind of money that you'd see going to him? I don't know if guys, big names like Demaryius Thomas and Ndamukong Suh are really likely. I don't know if it's worth getting our hopes up over that. But we need to spend money. There's a cap floor, and there's tons of cap room. So I could see Jordan Cameron as a possibility. I could see Julius Thomas, although not likely. I don't really see a guy like Demaryius Thomas. I think some more likely names at tight end. I really like Virgil Green. He's developed in Peyton Manning offense. There are a lot of directions that we could go. But I don't see Reggie overpaying.
Chandler?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to predict what we're going to do. It might be looking like Ndamukong Suh is going to re-sign in Detroit, and possibly Randall Cobb back in Green Bay, which would be much to your delight, I'm sure. But so with those two names off the board, I could see us going after Jason Pierre-Paul. He's only 25, if I remember correctly. He's got plenty of years of football ahead of him, and to pair him opposite of Mac would be fantastic, if not next to him. And on the offensive side of the ball, I hope we go after some running back depth. I mentioned Shane Vereen earlier. That'd be a fantastic fit with Carr, and that'd be a really good fit next to Murray, to have a kind of a shiftier running back maybe with some more receiving ability. Opposite of that, yeah, I could see Jordan Cameron, as Seth mentioned. I think that'd be a great fit to have a kind of a dependable tight end. Michael Rivera's has been developing, and he had some great games last year, especially against San Francisco. But I think it'd be nice to have a true kind of weapon at tight end and just be able to kind of flex Rivera out into the slot more often. So.
I know, Seth, I really like that you brought up Virgil Green, because looking into him, he was a guy, and I'm sure if he becomes a starting tight end, all we'll hear about is he was a basketball player.
Yeah.
But he was a pretty good receiving threat coming out. Of course, he needed developing, but actually last year he graded out as one of Pro Football Focus's top blockers. So I think, considering the bigger names on the market, if you can get somebody like Virgil Green for much cheaper, that could be one of the bigger bargains of the offseason. And one name go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, Virgil Green really he had some great depth in Denver at the tight end position. I'm sure he learned a lot from Peyton Manning, obviously, but then guys like Jacob Tamme in the same locker room, and Julius Thomas having a great season, and it doesn't hurt that he went to the University of Nevada either.
Always like that college connection.
Mhm.
So one name I did want to bring up to you guys, obviously we mentioned, at cornerback, if those guys develop, they should be pretty good. Look, it's not likely that Tremont Williams is brought back given his age. Do you think he could be a potential candidate for Reggie McKenzie given their history? Either one, Seth or either?
To me, it makes more sense to go youth. You can get cheaper and probably not much of a drop off with a younger guy. That's just my opinion.
Mhm. Yeah, I think Reggie McKenzie is going to learn from the kind of Band-Aid approach that we took with Lamar Woodley and a few others, and it just doesn't work, and it doesn't really add to the team going forward. So I'd like to see us target a younger guy. I don't think it'd be a bad signing as long as we're not overpaying for him. But yeah, I think I'd rather go with the young guy, as Seth said.
So looking at this 50+ million cap space, where do you think, if you had to give one prediction, who do you think the Raiders is the biggest addition? I'll start with Chandler.
Oof. The biggest addition. I'm just going to throw an idea out there. If Ken Norton Jr. comes, sign Byron Maxwell. I think that'd be a fantastic addition to our secondary. And if our coverage can finally hold, maybe Mac will have double-digit sacks. We'll see what happens. But we definitely have to have an upgrade in secondary. So.
And Seth?
And for me, I have to. I think I'm going to steal Chandler's idea with Jason Pierre-Paul. Depending on how we go with the defense, he does make a lot of sense, and he'll probably command a little bit of money. But as we saw 2 or 3 seasons ago, he looked like he could be the next great edge rusher in the NFL. And with a guy like Jack Del Rio, and depending on who we bring in as a defensive coordinator, I could see them looking at him and seeing the physical tools he has, and wanting to shell out some cash for him.
Mm-hmm.
And now to the most important aspect of the Raiders, and that is the NFL draft, where I think Reggie McKenzie he has a bad reputation at times, but I think last year he did very well. So Seth, we'll start with you. You're on the clock at the 4th overall pick. Where do you see the Raiders? Where would you go?
Well, obviously it depends who's available, but immediately the 2 biggest names that I'd like to see in Oakland are either Leonard Williams or Randy Gregory. We need defensive line help no matter what the scheme. I think that either of those players are versatile enough to play whatever you need them to. If you go with the 3-4, Leonard Williams could play your 5 technique. You stay in a 4-3, he could be a penetrating 3 technique. Even in a formation, or even if Ken Norton brings a Gus Bradley style, Leo style defense, you could see Leonard Williams playing in that Michael Bennett type role that Seattle has. For Randy Gregory, he could play defensive end for you. He could play outside linebacker in a 3-4. He could, I would probably call Matt Leo, but it's never bad to have too many pass rushers. So either of those guys I like.
What about you, Chandler?
I just want to echo what Seth said. My 2 names definitely going to be Leonard Williams. If he's there, it's a no-brainer pick. He grew up in Bakersfield. He's open that he's a Raiders fan, and having a player that wants to be in Oakland is a big deal, especially a player of his caliber. It'd be the no-brainer pick. It fits us perfectly. He's an elite talent. And then if not him, then Randy Gregory would be a great pick. He has the potential to develop into one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. All the physical tools are there. He can bend the edge. He has the length that you want. And recently, I've kind of been going back and forth on the kind of conundrum of taking a wide receiver at number 4 overall. And the consensus I'm coming to is that though it wouldn't be the best pick we can make necessarily, But we'd be getting, I think Amari Cooper is definitely more of a safe pick. I think he's going to be a top 15 wide receiver in the NFL. He's going to be 20 at the time of the draft, and that's ridiculous. And so I think I wouldn't necessarily be a bad pick. I'm kind of coming around on it, but Leonard Williams definitely my top guy.
I know you hit on my
I'd like to add a couple more.
Go ahead.
If I may, before I move on, there's a good chance that Randy Gregory and Leonard Williams will both be gone by the time the Raiders pick. So I wouldn't love Amari Cooper. I could see it, and I could understand the merit behind it. A couple more options I like. Dante Fowler, if he's available, I'm a fan. And then there's always the possibility, if a team falls in love with Jameis Winston or Marcus Mariota, and they fall to our selection, especially Marcus Mariota with the Eagles looking down, it could be a nice little wild card there.
Well, no, you just mentioned a trade, so I'll ask you guys this. Let's say that Randy Gregory and Leonard Williams are gone, obviously Amari Cooper will be on the board. In that scenario, do you take Cooper or are you opting to trade down if, let's say, you're moving down 9 spots, picking up a second-round pick and a future pick? And we'll start with
down.
Chandler.
I think hands down you got to trade out of that situation. There's a lot of wide receiver talent in the first. Maybe with 9 picks later, you can take Kevin White from West Virginia. If not, hope that maybe Jalen Strong falls to the second round, and if not, then you have my guy Justin Hardy, maybe falling to the third. We'll see, but there's a lot of talent at receiver this year, and if we have the option to trade down, I think we got to take it.
And Seth?
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer, slam dunk. If you can trade down and pick up a second-round pick and a future pick, you do it. There's some talent in this draft, and it's I don't know if the talent's there in the first round that there was last year, but you start to get to the meat of it in the second round, and falling back 9 picks, you're still getting one of those guys with a first-round grade. Although there's not a ton of them, you'll get one to fall to you, and I think you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And Chandler, you mentioned one of my favorites, Justin Hardy. And I think we were talking about this. It won't happen, but honestly, I'd take him late in the first round, and I'd absolutely take him in the second round.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I have him as a first rounder as well. I think he's my number 4 wide receiver, but number 4 that'd be with Dorial Green-Beckham as number 1. But who knows about Dorial Green-Beckham? We don't know. He could go anywhere from the late first to day 3. Who knows? But talent-wise, DGB is definitely up there. But Hardy's a stud. He's a really natural receiver. You can see it. He has a good feel for routes. He even though he's only 5'11", he just snatches balls out of the air. He's going to be a stud. I think he's pro ready.
Seth, who are some mid-round guys that you really love going into the draft?
Oh man, well, my definition of mid-round guys, I don't know, when I grade out guys, if I think that they have first-round talent, then that's where I put them. So a lot of the guys that I think are maybe mid-round picks, I've moved into the first round based on my rankings. But I don't want to butcher his name, but one of my favorite prospects in the draft is UCLA's edge rusher, affectionately known as Diggy in the draft community, I believe. But he's my number 10 overall player, and going in to the draft process, he had grades as low. I saw grades as low as like 5th round, and then he's slowly moved up, and I think he's kind of a consensus late first, early second round pick now. That he's starting to get some love, but I absolutely love the kid. If medical checks out, he's a top 10 pick in my eyes. Justin Hardy, as you guys have mentioned, he's kind of getting 3rd round grades, but I have to put in a plug for BigBoardDraft.com, and our first Big Board Draft mock, it's a voting style mock. We all vote on who we think should go where, so a majority of people think that someone should go somewhere. He does. Justin Hardy was a first-round pick. Same thing with Utah defensive back Eric Rowe. He going into the process, again, a lot of 4th round grades. He's getting some love now moving up. He was also a first-round pick in our mock. Those are some talented guys that, I don't know if he's a corner, I don't know if he's a safety. He could probably play either, honestly, but he'll probably get elevated by the time the draft rolls around.
And then again, Seth, just looking at the first 2 days of the draft, what would be your ideal scenario for the Raiders picks and who they select?
Oh, ideally, I would have to say, we kind of run the table on defense a little bit and go Leonard Williams, and then if Eric Kendricks falls to the second round, he is one of my favorite prospects. I know Chandler loves him too. And then third round, that one's tough. I'd probably try to add a receiver. I'm sure that there's a ton of receivers with second round grades, and I could see one of them falling to the third round. I could honestly even see a guy like Jalen Strong falling to the third round. Justin Hardy, if he falls. I'm a fan of Jamison Crowder. I don't know. Most people don't like him in the third round, but I could see us going there too.
Mm-hmm. And Chandler, because I want to ask you the same question, I will just say, Eric Kendrick slips past Green Bay at 30. I'll be very disappointed in 10 Thompson.
As he should be. Eric Kendrick is a stud, and if he falls to the second round, then I hope the Raiders are smart enough to snag him. As Seth said, I think my ideal scenario is Leonard Williams falling to number 4 overall. This is the no-brainer pick. And then second round, I think we have a lot of options there depending on who falls. As Seth mentioned earlier, Oamagbe Odigizua from UCLA would be fantastic on the edge. If it means we go D-line back-to-back picks, then all right, build the trenches. Eric Kendricks is another one of my favorites. So I have him and Paul Dawson from TCU as first-round picks. I can see both of them. And then maybe if we get lucky, Jalen Strong falls to the second round. But if not, then maybe we get lucky and Justin Hardy's there in the third. Another name I like is Devin Smith from Ohio State. I think the hype on him has kind of gotten out of control. He has ridiculous speed and acceleration. He tracks balls well in the air. And it's Deshaun Jackson-esque, his ability to track the ball in the air. But we'll see how far he falls. And hopefully he'll be there in the third. I think he'd kind of be a great fit with Carr. We don't have a lot of speed on offense, and that's something that's kind of killed us. We failed to generate yards after the catch, and it doesn't really help us move the chains. So a guy with some burner speed like Devin Smith or Dorsett from Miami would be fantastic.
And going back to improving the offense, Chandler, you mentioned running back that can catch the ball out of the backfield. When do you if Oakland isn't able to sign a running back in free agency, when do you think we'll see them draft a running back this year, if at all?
I definitely think that if we see a running back taken by Oakland, I think it'll be round 3 or 4. It kind of depends on how much the coaching staff likes Latavius Murray. He came on strong at the end last year after we suffered through Darren McFadden and Maurice Jones-Drew for 12 weeks. Latavius Murray finally got some carries and helped us get our first win against the Chiefs. But Murray came on strong at the end of the year. He's 6'3", 220 pounds. He's a big back, but he has a lot of speed. He really impressed, and we'll see how the coaches want to compliment him or if they think he's a starter going forward. I think he definitely can be, but I would love the combination of Latavius Murray and Duke Johnson from Miami. Johnson has ridiculously quick feet, and he's a natural receiver. He's great out of the backfield. He can do it all, really, and if he's there in the third, I would love that pick.
Seth, what about you?
Yeah, third or fourth round makes a lot of sense. I don't know if you want to use anything higher than that with Murray, who showed some ridiculous flashes of athleticism and just pure talent this season. Duke Johnson is my second overall running back. If he's there in the third, I'd be elated to have him. Another guy that I'm, kind of starting to fall for is Jeremy Langford from Michigan State. Catches the ball out of the backfield well. He's not exactly a burner, but and I hate to compare him to Le'Veon Bell. It's kind of a lazy comparison going to Michigan State, but they kind of have some similar wiggle getting through holes, and if he can channel that into something like Bell has, he's a really versatile back that I like in maybe the fourth round.
Yeah, I mean, it was just interesting with Latavius Murray. I think a lot of Oakland fans loved him, and Tony Sprono, obviously the players loved him, but I still don't completely get what took so long with them until they put him in the starting lineup.
It spoke a lot about our coaching staff to see just to suffer through it for 12 weeks to figure out it wasn't working. And then finally Murray comes on, blows up, and it kind of leaves the coaches looking really stupid. And obviously those coaches are no longer with Oakland, and we're grateful for that. But yeah, so it was an indictment on our coaching staff, and it was pathetic to say the least.
Now, speaking of coaching, I do have to ask, Jack Del Rio hire was met with mixed reaction. We'll start with you, Seth. How did you feel about the hire and the staff he's put together?
At first, I was a little bit disappointed with it, but looking at the options that were available and kind of what Mark Davis was looking for, it's, I've come around to it a little bit more. He's experienced, and just looking at the quarterbacks that he's had to work with, he's actually done some pretty nice things with not having so much in front of him. So I really think that he deserves a shot before I can dislike the hire, because he's done some really nice things. And his staff, it's tough to say before a defensive staff is there, but I think Musgrave's in kind of a similar situation, and he's gotten some mixed reactions as well. But he also hasn't really had the best weapons, other than when he had Adrian Peterson in Minnesota, and Adrian Peterson had one of the best running back seasons for running back that we've ever seen. So the jury's still out on him as well. I think that you kind of just need to sit back and say, the weapons are there. Let's see what happens, and then, if he can get Ken Norton, then I'd be happy with the hires at this point.
Chandler, what about you?
Just kind of first, I was kind of disappointed. I was hoping for a name like Todd Bowles, maybe Rex Ryan, but it just didn't seem like it really fit. Obviously, Mark Davis was looking for someone with experience and someone that could kind of help right the ship. And obviously, he felt like Jack Del Rio was the best person to do that, and hopefully it works out. But yeah, I've kind of come around to it a little bit more, looking at his experience, and he did decent in Jacksonville, considering that his quarterbacks were amongst just not talented quarterbacks, and so he finally has a quarterback to work with. I would say Derek Carr is the most promising quarterback he's had to work with. And so going forward, I like our chances a little bit more than I did originally. And obviously I can't comment on the coaching hires until they're all made, and we're waiting on a defensive coordinator. But I did want to throw in that Mike Tice was a fantastic hire at offensive line coach. And I'm excited to see what our offensive line will do under Tice. I think he's going to really develop Gabe Jackson at left guard, who was a solid rookie for us last year. And hopefully he can get something out of Menelik Watson as well at right tackle. And if we can get that unit to be solid, then we're going to have a lot more success.
Now, 2 prediction times, and Seth, we'll start with you. First, I know it's early, but what is your prediction for the Raiders' win-loss record? And then another question, is Jack Del Rio the Raiders coach in 3 years?
Ooh. I will say, for prediction, I don't think it's out of the question to see them go 6-10. I could see a 5-11 season. There's still a lot of youth on the team. There's still a lot of holes throughout the team, and it's going to be tough to win, to not have double-digit losses, I think. But I have some faith in the coaching staff, and I see Derek Carr and Latavius Murray and our cornerstone pieces developing. And Jack Del Rio, I will say, will be the Raiders head coach in 3 years, with the caveat that as long as we draft well, he will be the Raiders head coach in 3 years.
And your predictions, Chandler?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, Seth and I tend to think very similarly. I think I would say probably a 6-10, maybe if we're lucky 7-9 season next year. It always takes a year or two to rebound from, especially after 13 years of losing. It's been bad. So a 7-9 season would be fantastic moving forward. I mean, that's kind of all we can ask for at this point. But it'd be a right step forward, and especially we had a brutal schedule last year, as I'm sure you know. We had the toughest schedule in the NFL, and so although our record was pretty pathetic, we were a better team than our record indicated, and it showed against some teams that we really showed out against, and so I could definitely see a rise in wins, maybe as far as 6 or 7. As far as Jack Del Rio, as Seth mentioned, it kind of depends on how we draft. If we continue to add a lot of young talent to the team and we're smart in free agency, then I could see him being the coach in 3 years. I'm going to throw it out there. I think he will be the coach in 3 years, depending on how we draft. So.
I like it. And looking at the Raiders' opponents for next season, I mean, it should be a little bit of easier schedule. I will say I'm looking forward to the Green Bay at Oakland game. I think I'm going to have to attend that and see what Aaron Rodgers can do against that defense, which should be improved. And I mean, we went through all my questions, so honestly, is there any other Raiders stuff you guys want to talk about?
Anything, Seth?
Go Raiders.
So.
Just the one thought that was going through my mind earlier was that when it comes to like when we should take a running back, I think if Duke Johnson or Melvin Gordon are there in the 3rd round, then I think it'd be wise to pull the trigger. But with so many names in this year's running back class, I mean, Seth mentioned Langford, but you have guys like J.J. Shout out Liberty High School. He played for my high school. But he's really come on strong. He had a great year last year. You have T.J. Yeldon. You have Tevin Coleman, Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, David Cobb from Minnesota is another name I like. There's just a lot of names out there. And I could definitely see 2 or 3 of them falling into the 4th round. And so I can see the Raiders kind of just waiting it out and at the beginning of day 3 just taking whoever is available. I think that'd be a smart approach. And it'd allow us to maybe spend another pick on the trenches early. So
I love it. And before we go, of course, I love plugs and making sure there are shout-outs. So, Seth, we'll start with you. Where can people find the work you're doing, and where can they follow you on the Twitter? Seth?
Was that me? Sorry,
Yeah.
cut out. Yeah, okay. Well, I recently founded BigBoardDraft.com. It's a project I've been working on for a little bit now. I'm really happy with the way it's coming along. We've added some awesome writers, including Chandler and Matt. I really like the direction that we're going. I think we have some great stuff. One-stop location. You can find player profiles from a lot of us. You can find rankings and a lot of our teamwork too, like our mock drafts and stuff. So all of my work will be there. You can follow me on Twitter at SethMurphy4991.
And Chandler.
Thanks for having me, Matt. You can find me at CM_draft. I'm a writer for Big Board Draft with Seth. I think what Seth's doing there is fantastic. He's got a really solid young staff. Hopefully I can continue to produce a little bit more content than I have been. And I've recently became a contributor for Football Savages as well, and I'm excited about that opportunity that I have. So thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I will say multiple sources confirmed there will be a Matt Johnson Football Savages fantasy football article later this week. Multiple sources.
All right.
All right, and guys, thank you so much for coming on. Love talking about the Raiders, and as Twitter shows, there were many Raiders fans who enjoyed it, and some who were surprised by how deep Chandler's voice was.
Apparently. I mean, I've been working on it.
Yeah. And I like that Texas flag in the back.
Solid. I mean, I'm in Utah right now, but there's a lot of us here, and we all represent. Go Texas.
I like it, and everyone, I want to thank you for listening, and once again, guys, thank you for coming on.
Anytime.
Thanks,
Thank you, Matt.